Welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for giving up your time on a Sunday to join me for this live event. This is my first time doing this, so we're going to give it a go. So I know lots of you who are joining today, but for anybody new, I'm Nick Jones. I'm the author of the Joseph Bridgman Time Travel series, and I'm here today to celebrate the launch of The Observer Effect, which is the third book in the series, which launches next week. So that's launching on Tuesday, the 15th of March. So I can't quite believe we're here. It's been a hell of a journey to actually get to this point, to get to the third book in the series. And I know there's a lot of you who have been waiting for this one. So just a quick bit of, just to give you an idea about what I want to cover today. I want to take about half an hour, so I'm not going to take up too much time. Depends on questions. I know we've got some questions to come in at the end. I'm going to talk a bit about the book, some sort of behind the scenes of the writing and the planning process. I'm going to read a short excerpt from the book as well. And then at the end, I'm going to do a little Q&A. So hopefully some of you will have some questions. I've had a few on email already, so thanks for everyone who sent those in. So yeah, if you've got questions, just drop those into the comments. I've got Kay with me. She's going to grab a few of those at the end, and I'll try and answer as many as I can. That's kind of my favourite bit, really. I'd love to hear from you guys and just answer some of your questions. And we've actually got a hardback to give away. This is a fake one. I made it. Because if anyone's ever accused me of being a sellout, it's true. We've actually sold out on Amazon, so that's amazing for a start. So yeah, these are actually, well, this isn't one, I've ruined it, but yeah, this is a fake one because I haven't even got any. So I was expecting to get some from my publisher and they've sold out. So thanks to everyone who bought one of those. So yeah, at the end of this, what we're going to do is pick somebody at random from the comments. And we will, pick a winner at the end. So somebody we'll get in touch with you afterwards somehow, and we will be giving away a copy of the hardback, which is all very exciting. So yeah, hang around to the end and make sure that make sure you drop your questions into the comments, and Kay will be grabbing those. So let's dive in. So as I said, this is the third book in the series, and that's a really big deal for me. It's been a long time coming, and I want to talk a little bit about that. It's so exciting for me to finally have something new to share. And I know that for a lot of you who've been with me a while, it's been a really long wait, and I really thank you for your patience on that. For people who don't know, just a very brief bit of history about me and how I ended up here. So I started out as an independent author, and that's basically just self-publishing. And my first time travel book was self-published. Then I was approached by Blackstone Publishing in the States. That led to me getting an agent, and we negotiated a 4-book deal with them. So it was a chance for me. I'd already published 2 books as an indie, and it was a chance for me to go back and polish those books, and go back and give them another go, I suppose. And that was something I really wanted to do because, I'd released them episodically. So it was a chance to go back and work with, again, another great thing about working with a publisher is that I got to work with an editor. And for me, that was transformative, I think would be putting it mildly. So I worked with Jason Kirk, who's a brilliant editor. I worked with lots of authors and learned just a hell of a lot about the process of writing a book and editing a book and sharpening that, and also having a consistent vision across the whole series. So I wanted those books to be as good as they could possibly be. I was proud of the books that I published as an indie, but I knew where I wanted to go with the series, and by that I mean kind of tonally and thematically. the initial books were quite different to where I ended up wanting to go as an author. So it was a really amazing chance for me to sort of go back and revisit those first two books. So that's kind of a little bit of background really as to why it's taken me so long to get the third book out into the world, is because I wanted to go back and polish up those first two books and make sure that by the time those three books landed, that they were cohesive and they were part of where I was going with the entire series. So in terms of what book three is about, I'm going to try not to drop any spoilers because I know there's a few of you who haven't had a chance to read it. I know a few of you will have done, you've been part of my review team, but a little bit about the book. We pick up 2 months after the events of book two. And I left Joe deliberately with an absolute ton of questions. And he's finally contacted by the Continuum, which is an organised group of time travellers who are based in the future. And it turns out that the Continuum need Joe's help because one of their operatives is missing, and he was last seen in 19th century Paris. And the Continuum believe that Joe's abilities to see the past might be a way to find this missing time traveller. So in this book, I wanted to throw in lots of new things. I wanted to challenge myself, and I didn't want you as a reader to be able to guess where I was going with it. And I think that's definitely part of what I set out to achieve with this one. So I teamed Joe up with a new character. I wanted to create some new characters for the series. And so Gabrielle Green is a very experienced traveller. She's really acerbic and wisecracking, and she goes with Joe to Paris in 1873. And this is his most dangerous mission yet. So this one takes him right into a burning opera house, which again is something I'll talk about a little bit more. So the core mission is pretty tough in this one. Joe's got to try and save somebody who's been injured in the fire. But also I had this sort of secondary storyline where we have this missing time traveller. So we've got kind of two things going on, as well as a kind of haunted opera house. So it's a sort of good old mystery, really. And Joe is helped by his trusted friend Vinny, obviously, and also this time by his sister. So she's begun to paint visions of Joe's, it's Joe's future in the past. And those sort of offer cryptic clues and guidance. And that shows a very uncertain future for Joe. So yeah, it's kind of, I suppose, for him, he's got to dig pretty deep. He's got to learn new skills if he's going to get out of this one alive. So I wanted to write a kind of good old-fashioned, almost sort of action adventure with a good old dollop of mystery in there. So I wanted to talk, I'm going to have a little sip of tea. So I wanted to talk a bit about the process of writing the book. And that came together I sort of think of it, when I think back on it, kind of 4 stages really. And people often ask me, how did you come up with the idea? For this book particularly, people have asked me that. And the first thing actually was the opera house. So I knew, actually when I finished And Then She Vanished, so this is going back quite a long time, every time that I asked my subconscious what Joe might be up to next, like where do I take him next, I kept seeing this opera house. I'd see men in top hats and women in amazing dresses, and it was 19th century. But at that point I had no idea of story, but my muse seemed to know what it wanted to do. And I know that sounds a bit bonkers, but I kind of have this internal compass that says this is where you should be going, and I trust that. And this niggled at me for, I'm not kidding, it must be 2 years. But I knew in book 2 that I wanted to take Joe and Vinny to the 60s. That seemed like, with the Beatles connection in book 1, that seemed like the logical, natural thing. was to take them to the 60s. And I sort of had the idea for that book. So I wrote the whole of book 2 with this constant niggle in my mind saying, you're going to go to this opera house and it's in Paris and it's 19th century. I was like, okay. So I started to kind of research. So I finished book 2 and I thought, okay, now, and that's where I started. I sort of started to look into it and I discovered the Salle Le Pelletier Opera House in Paris, and it was beautiful. And this amazing opera house burned to the ground. And that was it. As soon as I discovered this, that there was a fire, that it was a real event, I knew at that point, okay, that's what I'm going to base the book on. And I don't know if those of you who've read the first 2 books, I don't know how many of you know this, but the books are actually based on real events. So And Then She Vanished, there's a flood in Cheltenham and there's a defence barrier built. That forms part of the story. That was a real event. And again, that's what gave me the idea for the story. And in book 2, the going to London on the night of all that terrible smog, again, that's a real event. The bank job was at a different time. I just combined the 2 things together, but they're all real events. So when I discovered the opera house, that just triggered that lovely kind of what if moment, because the weird thing with the opera house, it was a huge fire and it totally destroyed the opera house, but nobody died. And that was the moment that the sort of light bulbs went off, because that's a massive what if moment. What if the reason that no one died is because time travelers had been back and changed it, prevented terrible kind of tragedies? So in my world, in terms of how that works, I wanted to focus in on small sort of character-driven stories, because in terms of the title of the book, The Observer Effect, I've had this idea right since the beginning that huge events are witnessed by so many people that they get kind of baked into time. So they may not be able to go back and stop the fire, but there might be much smaller events that are kind of in the shadows, hence the shadows of London, but sort of smaller events that can be changed. And I think once I discovered that opera house fire, that really sent me down a complete rabbit hole of research. And for anybody who knows me, I was awful at school, like terrible. I hated history, I hated all that stuff. And then I ended up writing time travel novels. So my nemesis, if you like, is research. And the interesting thing with this was that I kind of surprised myself, because although I was petrified, because I thought I can't write historical fiction, that's not what I do. I write kind of quirky time travel stuff and I like to have a bit of a laugh. I want it to be drama and comedy. I want to mix those things together. But this, to me, like I said, I really surprised myself, because the more I read documents and old newspapers, I read diaries of people who'd been involved in the actual fire. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And once I got that, I also read some modern day stories of people trapped in infernos who'd escaped and that kind of thing. So I really started to get some characters coming through and lots of scene ideas. Still didn't have a story, but I had a lot of scene ideas. And I started to get a theme as well of kind of ghosts and people in kind of limbo as well, in terms of this lost time traveler, and really lives shaped and destroyed by, tragedy and disaster, and those little opportunities. The fact that no one died in the fire just really kind of triggered me off. And I think I also wanted to combine all of this new plot line and these new ideas with an expansion of Joe's abilities, and also introducing the continuum and more professional kind of time travelers. So I worked on the timepieces, and I also wanted to go back and explore a little bit more about how they travel in this book. So in And Then She Vanished, I introduced something called the Void, and I had these corridors, anyone who's read that, without spoiling it. But time travelers kind of fade out and then rematerialize in the past. So in between those 2 points, where are they? So I liked the idea of going into the void a bit more and exploring what that might be like if you got stuck. Like, what would happen if you didn't materialize at the other end and you were sort of trapped in this in-between world? So as I started to think about that, that started to give me effectively a location, a missing traveler, a mission. I started to get the mission idea. I started to expand on the time traveling, and then really it was characters. So all of this was happening before I even wrote a word. So, you know, I do a lot of planning and a lot of research. I get asked that a lot, and yeah, certainly I've turned into a real planner. So I think when you're developing characters, what I wanted to do was, you know, I had my location. I knew that I would need characters that were connected to Paris. I knew I'd want an opera house manager and benefactors. I knew I wanted to have some kind of phantom probably in there to make it fun. And I also knew that I wanted a composer. I had this vision for a composer based on a real life composer called Joseph Bologna, who was a black composer at the time. That was quite rare. He was also just completely fascinating. So I started to kind of flesh those characters out. I gave them goals and aspirations, problems and desires, and all the things that normal people want, so that by the time that Joe and Gabrielle kind of arrived into that story, it was a living, breathing world. You know, they've got their own agenda, if you like. So I wanted it to be almost a little bit confusing, and I wanted lots of plot threads going on. I've had some lovely feedback from people saying, I thought I had it pegged, and then that changed. Then I thought you were going to go there, and then that changed. And I love reading those kind of novels, so I wanted to weave that myself. So Joe and Gabrielle arrived there, and I think, again, once I got the character of Gabrielle, once I knew that she was going to be this tough cookie, that she was going to be very confrontational and annoyed by Joe being the kind of rookie, I had this kind of buddy cop idea of, she's the experienced one. He's suddenly, after 2 books and doing some incredible things, he's back to being a rookie, and she doesn't want to help him at all. And so I wanted a sort of tough nut for him to crack, and also somebody to kind of teach him the ropes, if you like. And scenes started to come, and that's, you know, but from that point on, it actually wrote very well. You know, and sometimes things can be tough, but this book, you know, once I got all that research and I knew where I was going with it, I felt confident that I'd have a book. You know, I set out to write entertaining books that are kind of, people say, when they say they can't put it down, I'm like, perfect. You know, that's what I set out to do, is just to entertain you and get you kind of hooked in. So I can see we've got some comments coming in, so that's good. I think Kay's going to collate all those up at the end, so that's great, and it's good to see everyone here. So thanks a lot for joining, everyone. That's really good. Really nice to see everyone. So anyway, I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. So this is again, I want to try and pick something that was kind of evocative, but also doesn't really spoil the plot if you're going to hopefully dive in and give this one a go. So Joe and Gabrielle, she's the wisecracking experienced traveller. They've arrived in Paris on their first jump to Paris. So this is the night of the fire, 1873. So that's the furthest Joe has ever gone. So it's quite an adjustment for him. And in this chapter, they've arrived a little way from the fire. So they've had to hitch a ride on a horse-drawn fire truck, or they're called omnibus in those days. And they're racing across Paris at this point. So, right, Ray Porter narrates the audiobooks. And Ray is one of my absolute favourites. And I'm going to do my best. So I'm no Ray Porter, but I'll do my best. So here we go. So they've just arrived in Paris. We screech around a corner and cross a bridge over the River Seine. Glowing boats bob in the darkness on either side of us. We pass through a thin, swirling mist, and I smell the first tinge of bitter smoke. The air thickens, transforming the brilliant globes of gaslight into a runway. The streets are emptying, and the smooth surface gives way to a bone-rattling cobblestone street. The sky glows orange, flames reflected on the nearby buildings. Screams soar above an omnipresent groaning rumble. We rush past a stampede of bewildered-looking people, their faces blackened by smoke. A horse gallops past us without a rider. I see a young girl dressed for the can-can run by on bare feet, sobbing. Two men are fighting, another trying to pull them apart. A pack of dogs scampers along the road, barking excitedly. Hot wind carries the acrid smell of wood smoke, along with a sense of madness in the air. The light intensifies around us, and the crackling, popping, and low roar of the fire are clearer now. We turn a corner and are plunged into a scene from hell itself. The opera house is being consumed by a ravenous inferno, adjacent buildings shining gold in its menacing glow. It still stands defiant, but it's obvious that it's going to lose, and soon. Half of the auditorium roof is already gone, revealing a lattice of smouldering red beams. The front of the building remains eerily intact, a row of tall archways framing and accentuating the fire within. Thousands of people surround the doomed building, dressed in their finest evening wear. They shout and gasp as bright orange flame spews into the night sky, followed by swirling clouds of thick grey smoke. Their expressions match my own: shock, pity, fear, panic. Of course, I checked this out on Google before we left. A few news articles, some illustrations of the fire, all with that reassuring long ago distance. History on a screen, flat and unmoving, soundless, safe. Nothing could have prepared me for this shocking display of fire's raw and uncontrollable power. The firemen seated around us jumped down from the carriage, moving in an organised fashion, focused and seemingly without fear. A couple of them head toward a steam-powered pump, bright red and gleaming, like something from a toy train set. They draw hoses from reels at its base, dragging them toward the battle. Men have already formed lines, creating fast and effective relay of water buckets. Bravely, defiantly, they work together like ants trying to save a nest. The fire growls, crackles and hisses like an angry beast. People shout back as though proving they aren't afraid. The heat is oppressive, stealing oxygen from the air. My eyeballs are completely dry, my lungs already burning. Instincts take over at times like these, when faced with the madness of such an explosive force. My entire being just wants to run, to back away. So I watch in awe as the firemen run toward the fire, dragging hoses under their arms like the tentacles of a huge sea monster, alive and pulsing with cold water. They are trying to save lives, knowing they could save their own. So that's just a little taster of the kind of I suppose the intensity of what it's like for Joe when he first arrives there. I wanted to throw him into hell. I always think of, when I watch time travel movies and read time travel books, people often seem to really take it in their stride. Like it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're back in time, let's go and do something. And I always just think how utterly scary it would be to go back and be faced with something like that. And I also think with history, I saw some amazing, well, obviously there's no photographs of the fire. So we've got, we've got black and white etchings of kind of of the fire, and seeing those, it's so easy to kind of step away from that and kind of say, oh, that happened a long time ago. It's black and white. It's no big deal. And I really wanted to get in there and try and imagine what that's going to be like. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, Ray Porter does an incredible job. Particularly on this book, I think I listened to it the other day. I've got a preview copy and listened to it the other day, and he does an incredible job. So, I'd recommend the audiobook. So, in terms of what you can expect, I think that gives you some indication, I think, of what I was after. And I think what we'll do is we'll go for I think we'll go in for some questions. So it's first of all, I think just a quick reminder that I've put a link into the comments here, and it's also on my web on the my author page on Facebook. Book 1 in the series, which is behind me over there, and Then She Vanished. That's actually free at the moment on ebook. And book 2 is it's 99 cents or 99p if you're in the UK. So it's a really good time to get into the series. So if you haven't got the ebook versions, it's a great time to grab those. Or if you know anyone who you think might enjoy the series, it's a limited offer. I'm not quite sure how long they're going to be that price. So it's a good chance to go and recommend it to anyone who you think might enjoy a good fun time travel series. So like I said, I've linked those. Hopefully you can see those in the comments. If not, you can find it on my Facebook author page. And if there's anyone here who isn't in my Facebook group, feel free, you can join me there. So I think we'll do some questions. So I can see that's great. I've got some questions coming in. So thanks to anyone who sent some questions ahead of time. I've got some on email. So I'm just going to start with one of the ones actually from email. So thanks to John for sending this one in. John said, when I read your books, I can see them on the big screen. Have you got any plans for that? This is actually a mixture of two questions, but basically what John was wanting to know. Have you got any plans on that? Has anyone approached you yet regarding film rights to the book? And film or TV, what would be your preference? Well, I think first of all, it's my dream to see them as a film or TV series. I don't know whether every author would say that. Maybe they would, I don't know. But for me, literally, that's kind of what it's all about for me, because film is my big love, and more recently I think TV is having an absolute golden resurgence, really. When I started writing my first novel, The Whisper of Stars, which is a sort of sci-fi thriller, it's not what I ended up writing. Obviously I changed my style quite considerably, but when I started writing that, I actually started it was a film script. And the more I just kept embellishing the film script with extra stuff until eventually I looked at it and said, I've never read a 60,000 word film script before. I think I must be writing a novel. So I kind of accidentally started writing books. But whenever I'm writing, I plan the scenes extensively. I pull from all the things I've ever seen, which must be thousands of films, more than books. I do read, I listen to audiobooks, I read, but mainly my love is film. So I've marinated myself for decades in all sorts of sci-fi and time travel and all that kind of stuff. So what I do when I'm writing, I plan a scene out and then I just play the camera. So it's almost like a hand crank camera. I see the entire thing, and that's how I write it. So I write it as I see it. And that's why I think I get so many lovely comments and emails from people saying, wow, I read your stuff, I can just see it on the screen. And I think that's a form of kind of telepathy in a way. That's my cinema imagination into your head. I think that's kind of how it works anyway. So in terms of whether that would be film or TV, that would really depend on the director and what their vision was for it. I have to say, part of me thinks TV because it's episodic, and I think you get a chance to go more into character, and I think that's what I write, is very character-driven drama with a bit of fun. We call them dramedies, which are like drama comedies. So I think, you don't know whether if you're going to get Shawshank Redemption, then yeah, great, let's have it as a film. But how many amazing books get made into terrible movies? So for me, it would all be about the vision. I think if I had to, I'd probably say the TV format. When I first wrote the Joseph Bridgman book, it was some of you would have read that one. It was in episodes, so I wrote like The Wind, and I released an episode every 6 weeks. And I saw it then as a TV show. I even called it a season, and we had episodes. So eventually it got folded into a novel. But I think for me, my life would be complete if somebody would make it into a film or a TV series. The reality is the chances of that are extremely slim. That's just the way it rolls. And also I would have absolutely no say in what they made with it. And that's why I wanted to write the book. So at least you can always say, well, look, I wrote the source material. Hopefully that answers that one. Let's have a look. So we've got one here from Maureen Kendall. Thanks for your question, Maureen. She says, I like the way you deal with very difficult subjects like mental illness. Was that intentional, or is that just how you are? So I think, yes, it was very intentional. I love having fun. So I love getting emails from readers saying, I was just swallowed some tea and sprayed it all over my husband or whatever, because you just got me at the right time. I made you laugh, kind of thing, laugh out loud moments. And I sort of think I I really enjoy reading stuff like that. I love a good laugh myself. So I wanted to write a time travel story. I was so inspired by sort of Back to the Future. I wanted it to have that fizz. So I knew I wanted to have fun. I knew I wanted a character who was a bit kind of like me, who would be sometimes brave and sometimes scared out of his mind. So that's kind of where I started. But I also knew that life is complicated and nothing is ever a laugh the whole time. We're going to have challenges. We're going to have really tough times. I've been through my fair share of tough times, like I'm sure most of us have. So that's what I wanted to put into my writing. I wanted there to be tough things for Joe to deal with. I wanted him to go through, he'd been through a lot of loss in his life. There've been some very tough things, and I think it's the hard things. We actually wrote it in, I keep saying we because Kay writes with me, and we work on these scenes a lot together. So I think, when we were actually wrote in one of the books, I remember the little chapter when we talked about it's the hard things that actually shape who we are. So I knew that was going to be part of it. So yeah, I wanted to write about the difficult things as well, and more so in books, I think 3 and 4, there's some pretty tough things happen, and I wanted that mixture of tough and fun and exciting. I wanted all those things, and I wanted it to be a full landscape, really, to write a kind of drama. So hopefully that answers that. One here from Lindsay Betts. Hi, Lindsay. So I know you're not doing questions yet. I am. But here's mine for later. It's like time travel, isn't it? Will Joe's brilliant college friend Mark Testella be back? I like how they work together in the first book, and he adds a unique dynamic. What a lovely question. That's somebody who's been with me a while. Thanks, Lindsay. Yes, I do plan for Mark Testella to come back, but I don't bring characters back just because. So I was tempted in books 2 and 3 and 4. So there's a spoiler. Sorry, he's not in book 4 either. But Joe's life works on many timelines, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So the version of Joe who knew Mark Testella, I don't want to do any spoilers, but let's just say things could be different now. I do plan to bring him back, though, but I have a very, very tactical moment when I want to bring him back. There's a reason. I want a reason, basically. And if I get to write some more of these, which crossing everything, I do, then Mark Testella will be back. Will Flood. Hi, Will. So he says, how did you get Ray Porter to narrate? One of my favourites. I absolutely love that guy. So I listened to the Bobbyverse books. I listened to, more recently, Hail Mary. I mean, he is Hail Mary. He is such a good narrator. Now, obviously, my publisher is American. I've had quite a lot of feedback from people saying, weird that you had an American. I'm not going to talk about that. But I really, really wanted Ray to narrate the books. So I just got in touch with him, and we had a chat. He read the book. He loved the book. He loves the UK. We talked about the fit. We talked about the market. We talked about whether he was going to be right for it. I basically asked him to do it, and he said yes. So that was a hell of a day. So yeah, I was very, very excited about that. And he has done an incredible job on the audiobook. So just reading that there is incredibly weird for me to read my own words. It's so difficult. When Ray does it, it just blows my mind. It's like it's a completely weird experience. But yeah, that's how we got Ray to do that. So one here from Mary. Hi, Mary. Did the fire at Notre Dame inspire this wonderful description? Yes. So yeah, it did actually. I looked at lots of images from the Notre Dame fire, and also some accounts. I read numerous accounts from people talking about the kind of damage and how the fire took hold. Because the fire at the Salle Le Pelletier in 1873, there was a bit of a mystery how the fire actually started, which I thought was, again, it was nice to have that almost blank slate. People said it was probably because of this and probably because of that. I mean, it was a tinderbox waiting to happen, really. In those days, just incredibly dangerous. There was no real, I mean, very little to stop hundreds of people. I mean, there was another opera house fire a couple of years before or after, I don't remember now, but hundreds of people died. So it was an incredible, it was a miracle that no one did, which is what drew me to it. But yes, the Notre Dame fire definitely inspired me. As I said earlier in the stream, I did know I wanted to do the Opera House fire before that happened, but when that came up, it did absolutely click and connect. So yeah, thanks for that question. I want to hear from Ruth. Did you have to do research into the effects of the fire, both the human body and on the buildings? And did any officials ask why? Yeah, I did actually have a chat with the fireman, which was really helpful. And I did also research quite heavily the impacts and the effects that it would have had on people. So I did a kind of almost like a word cloud at one point, because I've started to dictate my novels rather than type them, because my hands don't work like they used to. So what I tend to do is I tend to sort of cover my whole room in imagery and words and things like that. So I kind of get totally immersed in just one chapter. I do a load of research, I watch a load of videos, I do a whole load of stuff, and I just lock myself in here until the chapter's done, and I just dictate it. So I'll just walk around just dictating it. So yeah, I soaked myself in that stuff. So yeah, thanks for asking about the research. Maureen says, will you continue the series after the contracted 4 books? Please say yes. No. This one in from, yes, of course I will, Maureen. Well, I would absolutely love to. So as you said, I was contracted for 4 books with Blackstone. I love Blackstone. They're a great publisher. We're hoping, it kind of depends on sales. You know, I've gone full time as a writer now, so I have to treat it as a business. I only think that way when the book's finished. You know, when I'm writing it, it's just creative, and I don't let any of that get into my head. But once that's done and it's a finished product, yeah, it gets a bit real, and we have to look at that and kind of say, okay, you know, will Blackstone want more of them? I hope so, if the sales are good. So if the books sell and people want them, then I would love to write some more. So, you know, I've always had 7 books in my head, not just because that's how she did it with Harry Potter, but, you know, 7's a nice number. And I have got loose plot lines. You know, I don't like to plot too heavily in advance, but I know how it ends, put it that way. I know pretty much the whole of book 7. So I would love to write them. I would be very happy writing more Joseph Bridgman stuff. I absolutely love writing them. Kay will be laughing in the background because she's seen me with my head in my hands enough times saying, I can't do this. I'm just going to have to tell them, that's it. It's all done. We're finished. But, you know, you forget all that pain. It's a bit like, you know, running a marathon. Once you know you can do it, you get through it. And then you kind of think, oh, I might do that again. So, yes, I would love to do more. And, you know, I'd love to write short stories in that universe. I'd like to write, you know, other stuff from, you know, some of the other characters' POVs. I'd love to carry on writing it. We will see. So, yeah, share it with everyone. We need to get the sales going. If we can get that, then we're all good. So this one from... okay, we've got some more coming in. So what is your favourite... I'm not quite sure how to say that. Miarev. What is your favourite time travel story or movie? So that's a good question. Movie is easy. That's Back to the Future. And I still can't think of a film where the script, the actors, the music, the cinematography, the runtime, the pace, the idea, everything comes together in such a perfect package that without Back to the Future, I would never have written these books. I wanted to do my own version because I didn't like the sequel. They didn't explore the fact that Marty didn't know anything about his family, and effectively they think he had a serious brain issue. So, there was a lot about Back to the Future that the first film that I adored, and then I don't really feel like they did enough with it. So that left me a gap, I felt. I think there's room for fun time travel, but the nice thing with Back to the Future is, his family is at stake. People are fading out in the pictures. You kind of go, oh, it was quite serious in a way when you think about it. And when he comes back and his entire family has been fixed, I mean, that's incredible. So yeah, that's my favourite time travel movie. In terms of time travel stories, gosh. Oh, I mean, recently, I would say, How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. Also, what was that book that sold an absolute ton? I'll remember it in a minute. Yeah, I'll come back to that one. I can't remember the name of it. But loads of great books. Obviously I love stuff like Terminator and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I wanted to write stuff that was more like Back to the Future. So this is from Lindsay Betts. Oh, hello again, Lindsay. So if the worst came to the worst, could you self-publish them if Blackstone doesn't continue? Yes, I could. Again, it kind of would need to be. It is a little bit based on sales because I'd want to make sure there was enough of an audience to. These books take me about a year each to write, and I'm sorry if it's horrible to talk about the business end of it. I don't love that side of it. I just want to be creative and write books and just be. I'm in my happy place when I'm writing books, but at the end of the day, I do need to make something out of them. So I would love to. Yeah, I'd happily self-publish them. It would just be a case of whether we had the audience there. It's lovely that. I do know I've got plenty of readers who would like to read that, but we'll see. Never say never kind of thing. So Linda, hi Linda, she says, I do hope you go on with more books. You really capture the imagination. Oh, thank you very much. And you may have been asked this already, but did you spend much time in Paris researching the lay of the land? No, I didn't actually. But what I did was I used Google Maps. It sounds silly, but my God, that's incredible these days. So you can go properly three-dimensional, and there's the Opera House in Paris is very similar, apparently, to the layout of the Salle Le Platier. So they've, what do you call it? Like 360 VR cameras. They've done the whole Opera House in a 360 VR camera. All the backstage stuff. I wrote a lot of backstage stuff in this book as well, and all of that is available in a 360 camera. So I've been to Paris. I've hung out in the lovely cafes and restaurants and stuff like that. So I had an idea of what that might have been like, and then it was just research. I think my job is to soak myself in as much research as possible, and then try and regurgitate that out in a entertaining story using my voice. So, yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Will asks if I like St Mary's Chronicles. Yes, I do. Yeah, and I know. I'm friends with Jodie Taylor, so I went on one of her writing courses once and we became friends. So, yeah, big fan of her work, and she's amazing. The amount of books, time travel books she's written, I'm kind of in awe of her, really. So, get back to me when I've written 15 books. Let's have a look. If I like About Time, amazing. Yeah, the film About Time, absolutely love that. There were some actually similarities, I thought, with the kind of my style. And the simplicity of going in a cupboard and clenching to like time travel made me giggle. But absolutely love that. Bill Nighy, yeah, he's just awesome in whatever he does. Time Traveler's Wife, thank you. Yeah, amazing book. Again, that really inspired me. Yeah, I'm remembering more now you're telling me. But yeah, that really, really inspired me to write the first version of, basically to write Joseph Bridgman. I think when I read Time Traveler's Wife, I read Stephen King's, I never get it right, it's 11/22/63. So the JFK book, he wrote an epic time travel book in first person, and Time Traveler's Wife with the two POVs, that it just reassured me, and it reassured me that I could write time travel in first person, which is quite tricky at times, and hence that's why I came up with viewings, which is a technique that Joe has of seeing things, because it enabled me to switch occasionally to third person, which I really enjoy doing. So yeah, Time Traveler's Wife, loving your work, by the way. Thanks, Neil, appreciate that. Hello, Ben, that's Ben Dawes, I know him. Are you a bit like Joe, where you get the ideas from things you see and hear? Yes, I think I am a bit like Joe, yeah. His sort of love of music. My natural tendency is to be a complete hermit, so doing something like this, I've been pacing around all day saying, oh God, what time is it? So yeah, I think I am a bit like him. When I write, it kind of pours out, and I don't try and filter that too much. So yeah, when I come to write something else, that'll be interesting, because it won't be kind of quite so much me. But yeah, I think his view on the world is definitely, it's kind of my view on the world. When Joe has these funny, weird little thoughts, that's all me. So a question here from Dennis. So thanks for all the questions, everyone. That's really really good. I'm just checking the time. We're 47 minutes in, so we're overrunning a bit. Hopefully that's okay. I can still see people here, so I'll carry on while you guys have got questions. So Dennis Pombia the third, what an excellent name. So he says, Nick, I love this series. Have you ever read any of John Birmingham's time travel books? I think you've emailed me, Dennis, haven't you? And I think that is on. Maybe it wasn't you. I can't. I get emails, and I do read all of them. John Birmingham's time travel books. I think it's on my wish list, which is extensive. Unfortunately, I go through phases where I can't read anything because if I'm in my own writing mode, I have to be really careful what goes in. But I do listen to some audiobooks, and I tend to watch films. So I'm going back into a reading phase at the moment. So thanks for that recommendation. I'll check him out. Obviously you are recommending that, so I will check that out. So just one other question I got on email. How many other works in progress do you have on the go at the moment? What are you working on now? So that's from Andy on email. So thanks, Andy, for that question. I'm a bit all or nothing, to be honest. I'm only ever actively writing one project. I just throw myself into that. But I'm constantly working on other things in the background. So researching and coming up with ideas. I keep extensive notes absolutely everywhere, and I collate them. So now I've actually just finished book 4 in the Joseph Bridgman series. We're going through the edit at the moment. So I'm going to take a little break from him for a little while. I'm researching a new novel with completely new characters. I think it's got massive potential to be a new series. And that's a kind of urban, paranormal, mystery, romance, dramedy, which I think must be a new genre. And the working title for that one is The Unhappy Medium. So that's going to be similar in style. So my style, I think, is going to be constant. I like to tell a good dramatic story with believable characters. I like to have some fun. I like to surprise you. I like to be quirky. So that's going to carry on, but I think it might do me some good to maybe TikTok between a new series and then go back to Joe Bridgman, and then so hopefully that's the plan. So yeah, always working on lots of ideas in the background, but that's the one that seems to be bubbling up to the surface, so we'll see on that. And just the final question, just to make sure I've answered that on email. So thanks to Louise for sending this in on email. Will there be a book 5? Well, we've talked a bit about that. I really, really hope so. Book 4 is out in November, so that's this year. So I will have released 2 books in 1 year, which no one ever thought was possible, especially me. After that, obviously, we'll see. I've got the other 3 Joe books outlined. Yeah, karma is going to dictate on that one. So it looks like we are okay. We're done on the questions. So thanks very much for everyone for chucking in your questions, for asking your questions. And so just a reminder, The Observer Effect, fake cover, that's released on Tuesday. So yeah, Tuesday 15th of March. So if you're watching this afterwards, it is like time travel, this, isn't it? If you're watching the replay in the future, it's probably out now. Who says time travel isn't real? But anyway, early reviews. I've got a review team. Thanks to everyone. If any of you are here, thanks a lot for helping me out with that. The early reviews are lovely, so I'm just so excited. I'm really proud of this book, and I'm really excited for the launch. So also obviously available on audiobook. I've popped a link down in the I think it'll be in the description of this. If not, you can see it on my author page. Those link out to either the UK or the US store. It's book 1 is free, book 2 is 99p or 99 cents, and book 3 is out on Tuesday. So yeah, if you know anyone, this is me giving it a little plug. If you know anyone you think might like it, now is just the best time to get into the series. I mean, you're basically in for a very small outlay, so could be a good time to get into that. So as I said, we've got a hardback to give away. So Kay, if you are there, now would be a time to Kay's written all the names down, and they've gone into a beautiful black velvet top hat, I hope. So we are looking for one winner of a hardback. And also, everyone, just to let you know, if you're in my Facebook group, I'm going to be running a few competitions actually over the next, well, let's say the next couple of months. I want to do some giving away some audiobooks. I'll be giving away some more hardbacks. Hopefully, we might even do a signed hardback. There's going to be some Vinnie's vinyl patches. I know some of you have already got one of those, but if you haven't, they're very cool. Have I got one of those handy? Oh, it doesn't matter, but they are very, very cool. So yeah, over the next couple of months, I'll be giving away, there'll be a few competitions and things running. So yeah, if you want to join my Facebook group, you'd be very welcome, and we'll see what we get to. Okay, so the winner is, drum roll, Linda Gillespie. So congrats, Linda. So all you have to do is just drop me a note. I'll either contact you, or if you want to just do it, sort of send me a message in Facebook, and then we'll get together and we'll do a sort of private message, so you can send me your address, or email me your address if you're on my mailing list. We'll sort it out. But basically, Linda is going to get a hardback, and that will be coming directly from the publisher because I don't have any. So that's it, everyone. So thank you ever so much for joining. I was nervous as hell, and it was really good fun. So thanks everyone for joining in, and yeah, that's it. Hopefully, well, maybe we'll do another one of these. It was fun. So if you enjoyed it, just drop some, let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll make it a regular thing. Who knows? I can keep you up to date on what's going on. But that's it. Thanks everyone. Kay, have I done everything? Yeah. She's not gonna. Yeah, we're all done. That's it. Thanks for joining everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.